So, welcome back, buddy. Uh, what
Yeah.
is there anything like that you look for? Like, well, you like look forward to it to watch, but it's never seemingly right. Like without fail, it's almost always wrong. Do you have anything like that? The reason,
Yeah.
well,
Go
we
ahead. Tell me.
the reason I ask is because I read this thing that recently was Groundhog's Day, and dating back to 1887, this thing is right 39% of the time. It's like the biggest thing, superstition, whatever you call it. It's only right 39% of the time.
It's worse than a coin flip.
It's way worse than a coin flip. It's 11% worse than a coin flip. And I'm
Right. So
sitting there thinking, go ahead.
you and I could go outside on February 2nd and we could have a coin that says S and W on the side of it.
All right.
And we can flip it. And we have a better shot of being right than the ground.
And I'm sitting there thinking, like you've seen the movie Groundhog's Day, these people bundle up, they go out, they watch this stupid groundhog for nothing.
And PETA wants
And
to end it now.
and they're out there. They're before the they got to get out there early, and it's cold because it's dark still.
Lots of them.
And you know what? The only thing I could think is that's what must be like for a Buffalo Bills fan with Josh Allen as your quarterback every year. Welcome back to 3 and Out. Welcome back, fantasy football lovers. We're back for our annual Super Bowl special, where we have a pair of teams wearing red and two historical, successful franchises looking to cement their status in the folklore of NFL history. It will take a fearless performance from Mr. Irrelevant against the Chiefs defense that has been playing tough back to December, while the much maligned Patrick Mahomes looks to become the NFL's biggest anti-hero. However, as long as he could shake it off, Brock Purdy won't have a cruel summer. Could you guys imagine? Could you possibly imagine the last pick in the NFL draft? QBing his way to the Super Bowl MVP? It's not even in his wildest dreams. Welcome to 3 and Out. We're refreshed, we're rejuvenated, and if you haven't figured it out, we're feeling 22. Joining me, as always, are the fantasy football legends you know all too well, Chris FanDuel, Fifi Amano, and Mike the Professor Dutton. Gentlemen, welcome back. You ready to fill up this blank space with your fantasy football knowledge?
I knew you were trouble when you walked in.
Nice, Dutton.
Oh, Dutton, look at you. Yeah, I don't got nothing because I wasn't told.
I wasn't told either. It was just he was crushing it.
That was pretty good, right? I came out there. I don't know how many people are going to know that. If you have a daughter, you're definitely going to know what.
Yeah, everyone has got it.
That is for sure.
I think it's viral status. How good it was. I'm going to be honest with you.
But Dutton, well, it's been a couple weeks, guys. Dutton, welcome back. Fee, why don't you tell him who the comeback player of the year was?
The comeback player of the year.
I texted you earlier.
My boy Baker, baby.
Touchdown Baker. Come on, Dut, you had to be happy with the season.
Listen. I cannot be mad at the season Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had. They won a playoff game that I had zero expectations for them to win. I thought the Eagles were playing possum. I thought they were going to roll us. And they actually were not terrible the next week. They kind of gave it away at some point. I feel like to the Lions, they had a chance. They did give it away because my coach decided to just end the game without calling timeout.
That was weird.
They actually really did give it away.
Right.
Fee, you didn't have much to watch in the playoffs the last few weeks for your team, but
I have
the last 3 weeks been going for you?
Good. I've been enjoying the games. They've been fun to watch for the most part. My boy Baker, getting it done. Dutton loves it.
You're gonna love him next year when you end up signing him as a backup and you get starting him because he's not gonna be a buck because he's gonna ask for too much money.
Oh man, crazy. He'll be a buck.
Well, for the new 3 and Out a fan base that is listening to our show, what we do every year this time is we kind of go through a couple of the offseason moves that we missed as on our 3-week hiatus. We talk a little bit about what we may have missed there. We give out our annual awards, the Fantasy MVP, the Fantasy Breakout, the Fantasy Rookie, and the annual Urban Meyer Ass Hat of the Year award. And then we talk a little Super Bowl. So, gentlemen, what would normally be our buy it or BS question is just a couple questions about the offseason. Dutton, I'll start with you. Dan Campbell, thoughts on the 4th down calls in that game?
All right, here's my thoughts. He went with what got him there. He never questioned who he was as a team. All season, he went for it in those situations, except for one time. And that one time was at the end of the first half of the NFC Championship game, where he decided, rightfully so, to kick a field goal. And if you decided then, Coach Dan Campbell, to kick a field goal, why would you then not decide the next half of that said same game where you have a chance to be in the game and possibly win the game? So that is what I question.
Faith.
Yeah. So I like what they were doing, but they also have to be consistent about it. And I think where they got off track was kicking the field goal in the first half. I disagree with that call. They were killing them all half long, and that's when you step on the neck.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you twist the knife further. That you got someone down, you go for the kill shot there. You don't just kick a field goal at the end of the half, especially if that's been your identity all season long. So in that situation, I think you go for the touchdown instead of kicking the field goal. However, later on in the game, there has to be times when one thing is warranted over another. In that first half, there's nothing to lose. You're already up 17 points. You go for the kill shot. Makes sense to keep going for it there and not kick the field goal. However, in the second half, in the fourth quarter, when things are dying down and you're really up against it, I think in that situation, that's when maybe you actually do kick the field goal, even though your identity all season long has been to go for it on 4th down and not. But I think, you need to make better decisions, I think, at that point, especially when, again, when your identity is to go for it on 4th down all season long, at the end of that first half, that's what you do.
Right. It's so bizarre to me. The one time he doesn't do it.
At the end of the game is when you may need to change that mentality a little bit.
Exactly.
A little bit.
But the one time he doesn't do it all season is the worst time not to do it.
Right. I'm going to wrangle everything in because I agree with everything you're saying. I'm going to liken it. You guys know I'm a big gambler in casinos. I'm going to liken it to blackjack, right? Because there's this big thing in blackjack that's kind of like Dan Campbell. And people always tell you, the book says you always hit on 16. But you know what the problem with that is? There's no freaking book. Have you ever seen a book? Who wrote the book of blackjack? Dr. Vinny Boombots? Like, there's no art of blackjack book out there. Okay, nobody's reading this book. And any good dealer in a casino that you play around, the good dealers talk to you, they'll tell you it doesn't matter what you do on 16. If you hit on 16 or you stick on 16, just do it every time. Whatever you're doing. And if Dan Campbell hadn't kicked that field goal at the end of the half, at the end of the first half, then I have total respect for him. That's just who he is. He's just going for it on 4th down. But he reversed everything you said in this. If I'm in a blackjack tournament, a buy-in tournament, I'm the last 2 guys at the table, I am playing by the mysterious book that doesn't exist, and I'm going to kind of play more by the rules of blackjack because that's what you got to do. And Dan Campbell gave away. The Lions could have been in the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell gave it away, and I have respect for him because he did own that, right? As long as he owns it. But it's the thing that gets me is, like you said, he goes for the field goal when it wasn't their MO at all this season, and then it was so backwards it didn't make sense to me. But I don't think it's a fireable offense. I still think he's a great coach. It's just you gotta come in.
They won 2 playoff games. They were in the NFC Championship game on the road. Yeah, he is fine. Now next year is going to be interesting.
Yeah, Faith.
So I just back to that game real quick. it boggles my mind because at the end of the first half is when you're up by 17 points and really killing the other team. That's the time to continue to go
Made
for
no
it. Like
sense.
not to just be like, well, let's just back off a little bit. No,
We're gonna take a little rest here for a
But
second.
but at that moment, you were like, whoa, another 3 points. But then, down the road, then you're like, okay, now nothing makes sense, right? Why are you still going for it on fourth down?
Right. And to be fair, like, let's be honest, he didn't expect the drops that happened on third and fourth down that
Look,
would have continued
right.
drives. Like
Both
there
of them,
were
both of those plays should have been made. The throw was questionable on one of them, but
right.
a little low. But still, yes, you're right. They were first downs were easily attainable. It just wasn't. But that's a risk you take with fourth down.
Yep, exactly.
Speaking of tight ends, Dan Campbell's a tight end. Obviously the question is coming up a lot this Super Bowl. Who's the best tight end of all time? And I think we can narrow it down to three. So, Fee, we'll start with you. Is it Travis Kelce? Is it Tony Gonzalez? Or is it Rob Gronkowski?
Yeah, it's Travis Kelce. It's Travis Kelce. He's I feel like he's just by far and away. I don't know the exact stats, yardage wise, him versus Tony G. I just by the eye test, the guy is just insane, and he's been really amazing for a long time. And he has great stats.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I don't know what they are compared to Tony Gonzalez, but in my mind, I think he's the best tight end ever. I think he's better than Tony Gonzalez. I think he's better than Gronk ever was.
Done.
Yes, he's the best. Tony Gonzalez changed the tight end, right? As we knew it, right? Tony Gonzalez became the athletic, like, I used to play basketball. I'm tall, I'm athletic, throw the ball up, and I'm going to catch it, and I can be quick, right? Gronk dominated the red zone, but Kelce is everywhere, like middle of the field, on the sidelines, like red zone, brown zone, wherever you want it, like green zone, like he is there, like, and maybe you question his blocking, but I don't think many teams are looking for a strong blocking tight end in today's game. So like it doesn't matter as much. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So it's Kelce. Yeah. It's him.
So just for Gonzalez has more yards and touchdowns than any other tight end. And Dutton, you brought up the good point. Tony Gonzalez is the reason Travis Kelce exists. There weren't tight ends that would be a Travis Kelce if there was never a Tony Gonzalez. He reinvented the position. He was a beast. He was a wide receiver in a defensive lineman's body, right? And that's what made him great. Gronkowski has more touchdowns than Kelce, but less yards than both of them. But Gronkowski is kind of like the Shaq, right? Like he was just the most dominant. Maybe he's not the best, right? Shaq may not be the best center of all time, but there's no question he was the most dominant, right? There was no one going to take that from him. And that's kind of where I see Gronk. And then you have Kelce, who's just this absurdly athletic. At 34 years old, he's still going. That's something Gronk, didn't have for him. The guy started breaking down by the time he was 28. And I think you both are right. I don't think I think that plus what was it that he did the last game, right? He surpassed Jerry Rice.
That's right, what I was just about to say. If you pass Jerry Rice in any list, you're really good, right?
So listen to this. This year we have 12 1,000-yard rushers. That's down 4 from last year when we only had 16, and we made fun of the fact that there were only 16. Now we're down to 12. When you look at those 1,000-yard rushers, 8 of those 12 had less than 1,070 yards, which means they probably needed week 17 to cross the 1,000-yard barrier, which didn't exist until last year. So if you really do a 16-game season, we're looking at 4 1,000-yard rushers. Gentlemen, fantasy football speaking, is the running back dead? Dutton.
Okay. So I thought about this and I gave an example, but I'm going to talk about that example later. Dead, I don't want to say dead, but I liken it today's running back to 10, 15 years ago tight end, right? Where like if you had a really good tight end, you had, back then it was Shannon Sharp, Back then it was Tony Gonzalez, but there wasn't many other than that. But if you had them, you were dominating your league,
Yes.
right? If you have one of these 1,000-yard rushers, you're probably dominating the league because the NFL doesn't run the ball. They don't. Like Christian McCaffrey probably did. How many rushing yards did McCaffrey have?
He had just over 1,500. He led the NFL.
Okay, right.
But he had almost 2,400 total yards.
Right. So yes, I think that's what I'm saying. So you have a Christian McCaffrey, I just don't think it's dead, but I just don't think it's as valuable as it used to be.
Fee.
So I agree with Dutton. But I don't think that the running back position is necessarily dead. But what I think is actually dead is the running game specifically. So running backs, I think, need to be measured by total yards going forward and not just rushing yards. So fantasy football wise, as we're speaking, running backs are still very valuable because as long as you have one that catches the ball also and gets catches and lots of yards
You
receiving.
need the dual threat. Like every team is looking for the dual threat. That's what every fantasy team needs.
Okay,
And so
go ahead.
yeah, so I mean, so the running back position, by definition, I don't think is dead. You just need to find the right guys that also catch the ball out of the backfield and get you extra points, as opposed to just rushing yards. Like the specific kind of like Derrick Henry type of guy. Even though Derrick Henry has been really good for many, many years, he's also ran for 1,500, 1,600 yards almost every year, right? So he's getting you all of those yards that guys that are just getting over the 1,000-yard barrier are getting with the added on receptions and yards.
I like things that you both said, Fee. I really like you're right. Like the total game that the running back brings. Dutton, I like the tight end thing that you like, right? Like if you had one of the three. But here's my question for you. Honestly, both of you, from a fantasy, I can't think for the life of me of a single running back I'm willing to take maybe in the first round at all, but definitely not the top 5 picks. And let's go through it. Christian McCaffrey is an absolute beast. He just had the second most touches in the regular season in his career. Do you know what happened the year after he had the most touches in the season? 3 games. 3 games, okay? This is a guy that's very fragile. So then let's go to the second leading rusher. Fee, you mentioned him. That was Derrick Henry. Are you taking him in the first round of a fantasy draft next year, 2024? A guy that is running the more defensive players head on than any other running back and is just looking like his legs are about to fall off, right?
Yeah, probably not. Although it really depends on where he goes because I don't think
Right. What team he's on and how he's used.
That's true. So let's flip it to what Fee said, and it's more of the total back. So Christian McCaffrey, okay, obviously was the most total yards as well. You know who number 2 and number 3 were? Total yards.
James Cook.
It was CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill, who had a combined 128 yards rushing. So you're looking at 2 wide receivers that had more total yards than any other running back. So then you're right. So then the running backs, 2, 3, and 4 total yard running backs would have been Kyren Williams, James Cook, and DeAndre Swift. Gentlemen, are you taking any of those 3 names in the first round of a fantasy football draft?
No.
Right?
You're not. And like for the tens of listeners that are listening out there, you're definitely not in our league where you'll probably take a quarterback because
Derrick Henry will go in the first round in our league without fail. I promise you. Write it down here on February, whatever day this is.
But one of us will not be taking him, but Wayne is probably correct about that. But yeah, no, you're not taking anybody in the. I mean, I'm not taking any of those running backs. I'm not taking running back in the first round because I did it this year and it bit me in the tuchus. So.
Maybe the last pick of a snake draft. That's where I go McCaffrey.
Yeah,
I think Travis Etienne had more yards than DeAndre Swift.
Oh yeah, he was in there too. You're right. Travis Etienne was in there too. Sorry, you're absolutely right. So speaking of terrible position play, let's move on to the quarterbacks. Guys, before we get into the question that I posed on our spreadsheet, Is this the worst era of quarterback that you can remember growing up watching? Like, is there ever been a time that it's been this bad for quarterback play?
Fee, go ahead. I
No,
got some.
yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that quarterback play right now, not right now, has been worse than I can ever really remember it.
And you lived
Yes,
through like Kent Graham and Danny Cannell. Like you lived through some. I did too. David Carr. I had Sage Rosenfels for 2 seasons. Right? We all lived through it, and this is bad.
yeah, there is some bad quarterback play. I mean, there are some very good quarterbacks currently in the league, but they are very few, I feel like.
Yes. Yes.
When, you compare it to, other years, or, even, fantasy wise, there's always been a lot of good quarterbacks. Which has always led to people being like, well, wait on quarterback. You don't really need one. You could always get a really good guy in the 10th or 12th round. You know, now it's not really like that. Now you have like it's very top heavy, right? You have like the 4 or 5 really good quarterbacks, and then there's a big drop off. So
Yeah. And Dutton, I'll go to you.
I'm-
And we'll go
I mean,
back. Go ahead.
So like, yes, it is really bad when you get off like the top 6, right? There's
Yeah.
a big drop off. Like that is a big woo. But I will say, I think it's also perspective and how spoiled we've been for so many years with how good we've had it with quarterbacks. Because think about it. There was a time period where we had Brady, Rodgers, Favre, like Manning, and then we went into Mahomes and Manning was leaving and Russell Wilson was good. Like, I mean, so we've got Cam Newton won an MVP. Like, we have gone through a really good run of quarterbacks, and I think now we're seeing the fact that how important that position is, like, and how bad a team can be with a quarterback that can't understand how to either read an offense or read a defense or check out of a play into another play or understand like the speed of the game, because it is a huge, like, I mean, watching what's his face from the Panthers, Bryce Young, this year
Yeah.
was terrible watching him run around that field every day, and that was what we had to deal with every Sunday here.
You
Like,
know,
it was
and
awful.
you guys both mentioned it, like the quarterback play, right? And when we had those great quarterbacks, you're talking, you were looking at like a Philip Rivers or a Matt Ryan as the worst quarterback, right?
Right.
For fantasy
Yeah.
speaking. Like those were the guys you're like, I could wait on Matt Ryan, and they would be like number 3 in today's game. But here's the thing about quarterbacks in today's game, right? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, um, Dak, Lamar, Burrow, Hurts, Herbert, Stroud. I'd like to put him at least in that conversation.
Lawrence, maybe.
Goff, maybe. Like those are the maybes. But did you notice that entire list? Okay, those are the best quarterbacks right now. We lived in a time period, played fantasy in a time period where Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, and Brett Favre were all on the field. Do you know what those guys I just said all have that all but one of the best quarterbacks in the league have right now?
a Super Bowl.
Rings, right?
Right.
We grew up in a time where Dan Marino and Jim Kelly weren't all-time greats because they couldn't win a Super Bowl. And we're calling people like Josh Allen and Dak Prescott the best quarterbacks, and they haven't even been close to a freaking Super Bowl. Not even close. So
Well, hold on
we
one
have
second.
to adjust our whole.
To give credit, Josh Allen's been way closer than Dak Prescott's ever been.
Well, that's fair. But Jim Kelly was in 4 of them in a row, which is
Right.
be done again.
Right.
Well, lose 4. Maybe someone will win 4, but no one's ever going to lose 4 again.
No one's ever
The whole
going to
point
4
is we
in a
have to
row.
change our whole perspective on what a good quarterback is, because these guys aren't winners anymore. Now it's all about putting up stats for fantasy because none of these quarterbacks are winners. Ben Roethlisberger was not a great quarterback, but the guy just wanted to win, right? Like that's what made none of these guys have that. So for fantasy, it's like, so it's Fee, you said it. You used to say we could wait till the 12th or 13th round. That's because there was 12 good quarterbacks and you knew you were going to get one of them. Now
Right.
you're like, I can't do that. So
Right.
top 10, because of the way we grew up, you better bet your ass Joe Flacco's in there because Joe Flacco's got a Super Bowl MVP, and we watched that dude lead the Cleveland Browns throwing 4 350-yard games in a row. So he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, in my book.
It has to.
um, Coaching carousel. Who do we always talk about who we like, who we dislike? Just run through them real quick. Falcons brought back Raheem Morris. Dutton, what do you think?
Well, he used to be my coach, and to be fair, I did not like that he was fired from the Bucks the way he was fired because
Yeah.
he was in that transition when nothing was his fault.
Yeah.
Like he had nothing to work with, and I thought he was a good coach. I'd like to see him succeed. Of course, there's he's in my division. I don't know.
He's got to put the right people around him, and if he's
Yeah, and that's what I'm worried about. Right.
Fee, we'll go to you on the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh and brought pretty much the whole Michigan staff with him.
Right. Well, I mean, it's going to be an interesting situation there, right? Harbaugh, I kind of like the idea of Harbaugh with Herbert, but I don't know that he can coach the way he coached Michigan so conservatively the way they were, right? So he's and he this is going to be part of the problem. He's got Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert wasn't used the way he was supposed to be used the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And now you're bringing in Harbaugh, who's another run-oriented coach. And I just hope that he can adjust and use Herbert the way he should be used.
I agree. Dutton, the Patriots, Jared Mayo.
I think it's a great hire. I just hope that the front office knows what they're drafting for him. I really do. I like Jared Mayo. I think his press conference with Kraft was great when he couldn't pronounce his name, and he's like, "It's okay, it's a black name." I mean, way to just break the ice immediately. Like, I think it's a great hire for the Patriots. Just get him some players.
Moving on to the Titans, they hired Brian Callahan. What? I got nothing.
Yeah, I don't either. I was going to say you take it, but I have no idea.
Yeah, so let's move on to the Commanders, who took Dan Quinn from. First of all, a couple things about this. Dan Quinn is now the Cowboys defensive coordinator of the last 2 years, is now the head coach of the Commanders. Did you guys see the Tony Pollard thing?
No.
He was on probably Pat McAfee, someone like that. I forgot who he was on. And they were talking about Dan Quinn being at the Commanders. And Tony Pollard is like, no, he's our defensive coordinator. No, dude. He went to, like, how much do you want to hang out with Tony Pollard? That means that guy has been in the woods smoking weed, not knowing what the hell's going on. If he doesn't know his own defensive coordinator was one of the biggest coach signings of the offseason. Like, there was a huge market for Dan Quinn. And
he was being talked about for weeks.
Right?
I love it. I love it. Tony Pollard might be my new favorite.
Yeah, it's like, well, I want to hang out with that dude. But he goes and Cliff, our old buddy Cliff Kingsbury from the Cardinals days, we always made fun of him. What'd he do? He went to the Raiders, and then Dan Quinn's like, "Oh no, I want you here. I'm going here. The Dingleberry is back." So I just love it. I mean, the Commanders get rid of Snyder, and you're like, "Oh, they're no longer going to be a shit show." And then it's like, they 3 days in, the whole Cliff Kingsbury thing. Did you guys see the Bill O'Brien news that's happening?
No. Yeah, what's his deal now? Like,
right, he got signed by Ohio State to be the offensive coordinator. Ryan Day says he's giving play calling to him. He says he's giving it to Bill O'Brien, and then Bill O'Brien looks like he's going to take the bus in college head coaching job. He's totally Bill Belichicking, like on the Jets. And all the tweets that came out the day that it happened was like, Ohio State's offense never threw a turnover or lost a game with Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you weren't even there a day. Dutton, let's go to your neck of the woods, because it's kind of now it's in your backyard and it's one of your guys, Dave. I don't even know how to say his name. Canales?
Yes. Head coach, Panthers. I hope he knows what he's in for.
You want to hear something crazy? The Panthers have, they're one of the younger teams, newer teams. They've only had 10 head coaches in their history, and 5 of them have come since 2022.
What?
How ridiculous. That's 2 years. If I'm Dave Canales, I'm like, I'm having a backup plan. I'm like freelancing like kids.
I mean, that's what I'm
on the
saying. Like,
side.
I really feel like he took the job. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, Bruce Arians is in the front office wherever of the Bucks,
Yeah.
and Todd Bowles he's mentorish, and I'm sure he just looked at him. They're like, Dave, if you want to be a head coach, you're just gonna have to take that job. The whole league knows it's a laughing stock. The
Yeah.
whole league knows that someone has to be the sacrificial lamb. If you go in there and win 6 games, you are a god.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Fee, your boy. I think the Raiders made the right move here. They kept Antonio
Yeah.
Pierce. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I do love Antonio Pierce from his Giants days. But I think he's the perfect guy, right? I mean, I love his attitude. I love that he's a player's coach, but he's still, tough. And I feel like that's perfect for what the Raiders kind of preach, right? Like
Yeah.
it's their personality.
Yeah.
And I think Antonio Pierce fits that perfectly.
Yeah.
I think you love it because he's just setting up to become the head coach of the Giants in 3 to 5 years.
Fair enough.
Bring it, baby.
The Seahawks hired the keyboard player from the Doobie Brothers. Who the hell's Mike McDonald? Who is this guy? I don't know nothing about him. Do you?
Nothing. I mean, Pete Carroll wanted to coach. Pete Carroll told me he was coaching, and then the next day they said, "No, Pete, you don't work here anymore."
Yeah, that's a good one.
He was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens.
Oh, is that who he is? Okay.
Yeah, and so they brought him in.
If this is your first episode of 3 and Out, this is the exact knowledge we bring to you all fantasy football season.
So I mean, he's a defensive-minded head coach.
Okay.
So they're gonna, they'll bring back the Legion of Boom or whatever, whatever it is. But what's gonna happen on offense, right? Who's your quarterback? Is Geno Smith still their quarterback?
No way.
So like, they have weapons. They got Kenneth Walker, you got Tyler Lockett, you got JSN, you got DK Metcalf. You got guys on offense. You just need someone to bring it all together. And I mean, I don't know who their offensive coordinator is. I don't know who they hired, but hopefully, it's good that they have Mike McDonald because he can, help out the defensive side of the ball. But they're going to need to figure out their offense too. So.
And there's no head coaching change in Pittsburgh, but gentlemen, we have to talk about our buddy landing on his feet as offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh. Do you think he rebounds back in the coordinator position? Either of you?
No.
Quarterback still. He goes from one place with garbage quarterback play to another.
Artie has won my award, one of our awards that's coming up here.
He's won all of my awards for that cat.
Okay, so the last question before we move on to the awards is kind of a selfish one, but I'm curious what you two think. Okay, so the Texans obviously had a great season, well above, our expectations as a show, but mine as a fan, right? Like, I'm super happy. Heading into next season, they're going to have the 6th best salary cap, and there's some good free agents out there. However, they're losing Dalton Schultz, Singletary, who had a good year with them. Like after he became the starter in week 4 or 5, he was like the 5th best running back in football. Speaking of weirdness, right? Bernard, who had a ton of sacks, Cashman, who led the team in tackles, and Steven Nelson, who was one of their best defenders while, Stingley was out for most of the year. So what do you do with all that money? You're going to have close to $60 million in cap space. Do you go and bring back the team that got you to where you are today? Or do you go, picture this, close your eyes, CJ Stroud having Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Mike Evans to throw the ball to? Do you go and get Mike Evans? Or CJ Stroud having Tank Dell and Nico Collins handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley, right? Like, what do you do? Do you just build a complete and unstoppable offense and just completely let like guys like Grenard and Cashman and them go? Or do you try to stay within and keep the core together? It's a tough question. So I'm curious to Fee, I'll let you start.
So there's a few things here. I think that they should sign back some of those guys. Maybe not all of them,
Right.
but some of them for sure, because they are difference makers, especially the guys on defense. And even Schultz, because I feel like you can get him at a decent number, right?
Right.
As far as getting guys in free agency, it's really going to depend on how much you're going to have to pay them. Because Aaron Jones is getting older, so is Saquon, although they're both really, really still very good. But what's it going to cost you to sign those guys? You know, Barkley he doesn't want the 10 or 11 million that the Giants are offering him.
Yeah.
You know, he wants more than that. And we all know the way the running back position is right now, that no team wants to pay any running back more than $10 million a year. Okay. So it's really going to depend on how much you have to pay him. Same with Mike Evans. Mike Evans is old. I know Mike Evans is really, really good and still really good, but he's getting up there, man. And like, he's going to command $25 million a year. Are you willing to spend half of your cap space on one super old guy?
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough situation. I know he's really good. You know, maybe you can just rent him for a year. Maybe you'll sign a 1-year deal. You know, like maybe that's worth it, right? You sign him through a 1-year deal, for the year and see what he's got left. So, and listen, and selfishly, I love Saquon Barkley, right? And I would hate to see him with the Texans, although that would make their offense fucking insane. Sorry, excuse the language.
Beep.
But there would be, but it would make their offense really, really good, and it would be a lot of fun to watch. But I hope it doesn't happen.
What would you do? Be the GM.
I would continue to build a young core with your young coach. If you can get a veteran on a good deal, get it. But no, you need to build a young team. You are way ahead of time. Like, you are Doc Brown in a DeLorean. Like, you are way ahead of schedule right now. Continue to build a young team that's going to buy into what your coach is preaching, because he's preaching something and they are believing it.
Yeah.
And that's what I say you do.
Stayed. Skolnick, Lewis Skolnick stayed. But the thing is, you said go get veterans. They did that last year, right? That's where the Schultz came in. That's where
Right. And that's what I'm saying. You find one here and there, but no, I don't think you blow the wad on these big time veterans. I think
I really want them to keep what they got going. Yeah, I agree with you.
Build a young core.
Yeah.
I don't think they should go out and get any of these veterans. Like, there's no way you should be spending all your money on guys that are very old.
Yeah.
Especially for
they have 6 offensive linemen that are going nowhere on very favorable salaries. So like they got the parts that you need to succeed going already. All right, so let's move on to the Fantasy Football Awards, the first official 3 and out Fantasy Football Awards, because we always did this under the Fantasy Football Breakdown in the years past. So we'll start easy with the MVP. I see we all have different answers here. So Dutton, start with you. Who's your fantasy MVP and why?
CeeDee Lamb. You knew he was going to be a really good wide receiver, but did you know he was going to be
number 3 in total yards?
Right. Number 1 wide receiver. Right. Well, no, Tyreek was number 1, I guess, but you could argue.
CD was. They were neck and neck, but
right.
I mean, yardage wise, Tyreek was, but
right. But you could argue that CD might have been more fun to watch later on in the season because Tyreek was kind of slowing down. But I'm going with CeeDee Lamb. I mean, God, that guy was a monster.
B.
Yeah. So my guy is Christian McCaffrey, and the reason is because he had the most fantasy points out of any non-quarterback position player. And not only that, but he outpaced every other running back by over 100 fantasy points. Now, we talked last year about how Travis Kelce was the fantasy MVP because of how valuable he was to his position, because he outscored every other tight end by more than 100 points. And now you're talking about a running back doing that to every other running back there is in the league right now.
That's
So Christian McCaffrey, and again, he had the most points out of any other position other than quarterback. And not even by a ton, but for me, Christian McCaffrey is by far the year's MVP for fantasy.
I'm going to throw Tyreek Hill into the mix. Obviously, he was a good bargain. Mike Evans, I threw in there just because he was like a number 5 fantasy scorer, and he went really late because of the contract negotiation during the drafts. I mean, I got him in the last round, right? Like most people got him, and he was beneficial to him. But I don't know if the 100-point thing. I think he kind of sold me on.
Hard to argue against that.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna name Christian McCaffrey is gonna earn his first 3-and-out fantasy football MVP this year. I
Probably
think
helped that he did the whole season.
One other guy I want to mention here, and I know that you're gonna hate it, Wayne.
I hate it already.
Is
I know it is.
I know is Josh Allen, and the reason is because he had the most fantasy points out of any player all year long.
Yeah.
He had 500 and at least in our league, he had 507 fantasy points, 30 points, almost 40 points better than the second best quarterback, 60 points better than the third best quarterback, 70 points better than the fifth and sixth best quarterback. So he outpaced a lot of quarterbacks, and he outpaced all other positions by a long shot. I just want to mention
it's definitely he had a great fantasy year. We've talked about it. He's always has great fantasy years, and that's why people overlook the fact that he doesn't win Super Bowls. Breakout star.
He had 15 rushing touchdowns, same as Jalen Hurts.
No, I didn't know that. Wow, 15.
Yeah. 15.
Wow. Breakout candidate. I had to go Homer, and I went Nico Collins. He had an amazing year, but he did miss 3 games. But I was just throwing him out there because he was unbelievable until he got hurt. Fee, I like yours.
Yeah, I'm going with either. I put 2 guys here. Jordan Love.
I think that's
was simply outstanding all year long. I mean, he did struggle in the beginning of the year a little bit. There was some hiccups there, but as the season went along, he just got better and better and better. And by the end of the year, he was amazing. He was really killing it. Fantasy wise, real life wise, he was just an outstanding quarterback. And the second guy I have here is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, if you want to talk about, breakout stars, yes, he was really good last year. But this year he was number 3 behind Tyreek Hill, fantasy points wise, and receiving yards wise. He had over 1,500 yards receiving this year, 119 catches. He was literally almost right there with Tyreek Hill, and almost basically CeeDee Lamb as well. So Amon-Ra St. Brown had an amazing year, and we'd be remiss not to mention him in this category.
Yeah, no, that's a fair assessment. Dutton, I want to hold off on yours because I think we're going to talk about him in the next one. Who do we? I think Jordan Love gets because Jordan
Love. I mean, I was going to say I ended up starting Jordan Love over Jalen Hurts towards the end of the season in our league, right? Like because they were either equal in points or Jordan Love was actually starting to outscore him.
Yeah, let's give it to Jordan Love. Good for him. Rookie of the year. This is where we're going to do it. And I think everyone, we wrote down 3 names here. Obviously, I'm throwing out CJ Stroud. Dutton.
I'm fine with giving it to CJ Stroud. He was my breakout player. I threw out Jahmyr Gibbs just because the running back position we talked about it is not very strong, but he was really good. So,
and he missed what 3 or 4 games, right?
Yeah.
And then Fee, I mentioned CJ Stroud. You have the second guy that I threw out there too, so I'll let you talk about him.
Right. So yeah, I had CJ Stroud as well, just because he was the obvious choice. But I also had Sam Laporta. He was an amazing tight end for a rookie. He led the league, not in yards, because George was it George? I think George Kittle led the league in yards, in receiving yards. In receiving yards. But he led the league in fantasy points for tight ends.
Yeah.
Okay. Almost 30 more points than George Kittle. and Evan Ingram and Travis Kelce and TJ Hawkinson, all right there. Although it's funny, TJ Hawkinson went on IR. I don't know exactly how many games he played, but he would have been head and shoulders above everybody if he didn't get hurt.
He was going to be my breakout until the injury, no doubt.
But yeah, Sam Laporta led all tight ends in fantasy scoring this year.
Right, he had that streak at one point. It was like 6 or 7 games to start his career with at least 4 receptions, which no tight end had ever done before. I mean, like that's
Right.
if
Yep.
you're in a PPR from a tight end and you know you're going in with 4 points from your tight end, you're at a huge advantage just knowing just 4 receptions.
Right.
Yep.
But I do think it's CJ. I think we got to
Yeah,
go with
for
CJ.
sure it is.
All right, so the Urban Meyer Ass Hat Award, the evolution of this award was the Ass Hat because we were all angry at people on our fantasy team. And in year 2, thanks to Fee, we realized that Urban Meyer had ruined the careers of 4 or 5 people. So Urban Meyer won the Ass Hat Award, and not only did he win it, it is now named after him for being a career. So the Urban Meyer Ass Hat Award, Dutton, I think yours takes the cake, but there's a couple good ones out here. So get started with yours.
Okay, so I said Bijan Robinson, but then I said, you know what? Really, it's not his fault. It's his dumb coach's fault. So the Asshat Award fittingly goes to a coach, Arthur Smith. He has ruined Bijan
Well,
Robinson.
hopefully he hasn't ruined them, but he definitely set them back. We're hoping he hasn't ruined them.
Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts,
Drake London.
I mean, all these big names are like, woo, these guys are gonna be great. Nope, wah, wah. Thank you, Arthur. So good luck, Pittsburgh. I hope you have fun.
Yeah, and the thing with Bijan, everybody was saying. I mean, you remember Jeff on the first show said he had him number 1, has number 1 running back. This was a guy. This is a rookie that was drafted behind a great offensive line at the beginning of the year. Great offensive line before the injuries. And was going top 5 in every draft, a rookie. So that was a really bad year. Fee, before we get to you, other names I threw out were Travis Kelce. I mean, the dude was a first rounder this year. He played great, but a first rounder, no. Patrick Mahomes, because what we talked about with the quarterback play, you invested an early pick to get Mahomes this year, and he didn't play like an early pick Mahomes. And then Dameon Pierce was a top 5 round running back, and he wasn't even getting 2 carries a game by the end of the season. So I want to throw him out there. Fee, close us off because you got the winner listed as well.
Yeah. So it's funny because I had just put it just as Dutton had put his, but it's Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
And I know that he's not a player, but he screwed up so many players this year.
High picks.
You know, we talked about Bijan Robinson, but it wasn't just Bijan Robinson. It was Drake London. It was Kyle Pitts. It was everybody on that Falcons offense. And it went on for way too long. And yeah, I mean, Arthur Smith really takes the cake here to supplant Urban Meyer as the ass at him.
When you could ruin 3 players' season, all 3 of which went before the 4th round,
Right.
You are the ass hat. You are the ass hat. So to recap, our MVP, 3 and out MVP is Christian McCaffrey. Our breakout is Jordan Love. Our rookie is CJ Stroud, and the Urban Meyer Ass Hat Award, the Urban Meyer Ass Arthur Smith Hat Award goes to Arthur Smith.
I did want to mention one more thing.
Go for it.
One guy that we actually should have mentioned in the rookie portion is Puka Nacua.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's a great point.
We didn't mention him, but God, that guy had such an amazing year.
Absolutely.
He finished 4th, right behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, in wide receiver scoring, in fantasy scoring, and I believe he was 4th in yardage as well.
Yeah.
105 catches for almost 1,500 yards. Only 6 touchdowns is kind of what held him back a little bit.
Yeah.
But he had an incredible year. I just wanted to mention him.
I like it. No, that's a great addition. So let's move on to the Super Bowl. This is what we're here for. Dutton, Fee and I are 2-1 in our 3 years. This is our 4th year. In the 3 years of doing a show, you're 1-2. Hopefully, you're not jinxing us because we all have the same pick this year. Looking at the spreadsheet, Heading into the big game, according to MGM, BetMGM, they aren't sponsoring us. I'll keep saying your name if you do want to sponsor us, but the 49ers are giving 2 points. Dutton, I'm sure we have different reasons why, but Dutton, go ahead. Why are you taking the Chiefs? We're all taking the Chiefs. Here's spoiler alert. We're taking the Chiefs.
I'm taking the Chiefs because I'm just confused. I'm confused by the 49ers are getting 2 points. I get it. They're a number 1 seed. I get it. They won a lot of games, but they got spanked by the Ravens, and I watched the Chiefs pretty much handle the Ravens.
Yeah.
And these Chiefs are not the same Chiefs that we watched Thanksgiving. And the 49ers should have lost to the Packers. 49ers should have lost to the Lions. And I think the 49ers will lose to the Chiefs. I don't think you bet against Patrick Mahomes anymore.
Faith.
I agree with everything Dutton said. And what I want to add, so yes, I have the Chiefs +2. And what I want to add to this is, I know the old adage is defense wins championships. Okay. And the Chiefs have the better defense in this matchup. The 49ers defense on paper and through word of mouth thinks that the Niners defense is very, very good. They are good, but they're not great. They can be beat. Yeah. The Lions scored 31 points on them. They've gotten a lot of points scored on them recently in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that the 49ers defense is as good as people might think they are. And I'm going with the defense wins championships. The Chiefs defense, very, very good. And while I know that the 49ers offense has been historical and great, I just think when you get to the Super Bowl, you need everything. And the 49ers defense is not as good as the Chiefs defense. And I think when you have Patrick Mahomes on one side going against the defense that's just okay, it's hard to bet against him. Like Dutton just said, it's hard to bet against Mahomes in a situation like that. So I'm going to go with a guy that has done it before, who's been incredible at coming back, and who has the better defense.
And I think, I'm going with what Fee said. I think so. Mahomes and Kelsey, let's face reality. They didn't have Mahomes and Kelsey seasons, but that's what was talked about, right? That's all that was talked about, is how they were having down years, and nobody realized that the Chiefs defense is so good. They got so many young, quick players that I think match up with the 49ers very well. And you both said it. They almost lost both of these games. Jordan Love literally gave the 49ers the game. That was a terrible throw. He literally
didn't need to throw it. He didn't need to throw it.
He gave it to him. Verras is going to be mad because he's going to say he didn't literally do it, but he did it. He gave them the game. And then Dan Campbell, you could argue, gave away the game, right? So I just don't think Andy Reid gives away games. Patrick Mahomes, not games that matter. During the regular season, sure, they had some bumps and bruises. Now, I don't think we're going to see that. I think you got to lock it in with the Chiefs, and we're talking dynasty here. Like, arguably better than the Patriots dynasty, right? Like, we're looking at something really crazy here. And then how we like to close out our Super Bowl shows, we like to take some of the props from MGM. Again, they're not sponsoring us. I will continue to say your name until you do. So let's just get started and jump in with some of these props. I'll read them, and gentlemen, we'll just talk about them. Of course, the first one, and usually the most fun, is the coin toss. We going heads or tails this year? Dutton.
3 of the last 5 have been tails. I'm going heads.
Woo! I'm going tails, baby.
Yeah, last year was heads, so I'm going tails too. First to score, not the player, just the team. Who's going to be the first team to score? Dutton.
Chiefs.
Fee.
Chiefs.
I think it's the Chiefs too. Dutton, who do you think it's going to be?
Travis Kelce, 7-yard touchdown.
7.
Fee.
Harrison Butker, 44
That's what I
yard.
wanted to go with.
Sorry.
Okay, all right. I'll just go crazy. I think it's Butker. I'll throw out a Mahomes and roll out and then he sees an opening and he scores. That will be my pick. But
Actually, I take it back. Hold on. I'm still going with my Kelsey touchdown, but it's a 13-yard touchdown.
I get it. I get it. I get it. Not 80.
Look at you.
Not
Look
89
at you.
yards. If they get the ball on the 11-yard line, they better just throw long to start the game and just throw long to try to hit Kelsey on an 89-yard line.
If that happens, every TV in the country will turn off because people are like, it's rigged.
Yeah. Christian McCaffrey props. Fee, over 4.5 receptions for Christian McCaffrey.
Yes, 100%.
Dutton.
Over.
3 overs. Total yards, rushing and receiving, over 129.5. Dutton.
Under.
Really, you think the Chiefs could hold him? I think he'll be
70 and 50.
I think he'll be that's still a good day. I think that will be the only weapon the Chiefs can't take out, because I don't think anybody can take out Fee.
Yeah, I'm over on 130. Yeah.
Brock Purdy props. 2+ touchdowns. So 2 doesn't win you. You have to get more than 2. Dutton.
No.
Fee.
Yeah, I'm going under.
Yeah, I think he throws 2, to be honest with you. So I think it's a losing bet. 247 yards is his over under. What do we think, Fee?
I'm going under.
Dutton.
Under 227. Yeah.
I like that you're bringing a number. I like that. I think it's under. I'll go 246 just to be like right. It's tough. Patrick Mahomes props 2+ TDs. Again, 2 does not win the bet. Dutton.
Before I answer this question, I have a question for the house. Is that total touchdowns or throwing touchdowns?
Throwing.
Okay, I'm going over.
Fake.
I wanted to say he would have 2 passing and go even, but yeah, so you did that. But so I'd go over if I had to take a guess.
Yeah, I think both quarterbacks throw for 2. Kansas City always has that random guy score, right? It's going to be like Jerick McKinnon breaks a 90-yard run on like a broken play, and that's how they win the game. Like, it's going to be someone like that. Like, I can't remember who it was a few years ago. Damian Williams. Remember? Damian Williams, 2 touchdowns. It's like, Damian Williams? Really? 261 passing yards is his over under. What do you think? I said stay away, because Mahomes could go either way. He could have a 5-touchdown, 240-yard day, or a 380-yard day with no touchdowns. Like, I would not touch that bet. Fee.
I mean, that's fine. I'd go over if you're gonna make me choose. I would
if
say
you're
over.
making me choose on the show, I'm going over as well.
Okay.
But I don't think he breaks 300, but I think he gets close.
Okay. Kelsey, does he get more than 2 TDs?
No, under.
Yeah, I don't think. Oh, you have over Dutton, huh?
Wait, more than 2 TDs?
2+.
Yeah, 2+.
So if he has 2, that means nothing, right?
It wins. No, it wins.
It wins?
Yeah.
Then I'm going, yes, he wins. He's having 2 touchdowns.
71 is his over under in receiving yards.
I'm going over on that.
I think that's
Over. I think he's going to have like 127 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think we're in like Terrell Owens territory.
That's like that's MVP territory.
It's close, I'm telling you.
Woo!
Script is written.
Pacheco was 67 over under rushing yards, just rushing. I think under. Dutton.
Under.
Fee.
I'm going over on this one. Probably not by much, but I'm gonna take a chance.
I just think Jerick McKinnon being back, Clyde Edwards. I think too many rando people get the ball in their hand. Like, Noah Gray is going to have a 60-yard touchdown, and everyone's going to be like,
or some
what?
Offensive lineman's going to catch like a lineman eligible 2-yard pass.
Yeah. The fridge is going to make a comeback and just come plowing up the middle. Isaiah Pacheco receptions 3 over under. 3 is the over under. I said, what'd I say? I said under.
Under.
Fee, you say under?
I'm going under also. Yeah.
Dutton.
I'm going over. He'll have 4.
I like it. Rice, Raishi Rice, anytime touchdown. Yep. I don't know. I feel like this is it. I said it's going to be close. You both split. So what do we think? Kittle over under receiving yards is 49.
I think he leads the team in receiving yards Sunday night.
So you're going over.
Yes.
Okay. Fee, why are you going under?
Well, I think that I think that he's going to have to block. And I think that they're not going to be able to get him the ball in space or down the field. He's not going to block all game. I just think that he's going to catch short balls, middle of the field.
He's going to get a lot of hot routes. He's going to be the hot route guy. I'm telling you. And
I don't know. I mean, 49 is kind of low. It's going to be close. I just felt like going under on this one.
Yeah, because they have really good linebackers too that are going to bump them and rock them and sock them. So I wrote close because I couldn't decide. I guess maybe I would go over. Maybe it's 51. Like that's how close I think it's going to be. But that's all I got on the props. Those were fun. Let's see. Did we get everything? That was a long show. It was an hour show. It's actually shorter than all of our other Super Bowl shows, to be honest with you. So I'm afraid that we didn't get anything, but I think we got it all. And that brings a close, our official close to our first official 3 and Out season. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully that the audience that we had all year comes back for this show. I'm going to blast it out there. Dutton, anything before we go?
No. Yes, I do have something. When you're watching the Super Bowl Sunday night, and you see Miss Taylor Swift on the television, don't be mad that you see Taylor Swift on the television. Be happy that some little girl is watching the Super Bowl waiting to see Taylor Swift, and she's also excited to watch that football game. That's what I have for you.
I couldn't agree more. My daughter is excited to watch the football game, and I can root for her because I want to root for the Chiefs, and we can root for the same team. Fee.
And isn't it weird that the Chiefs become like the bad guys? Like it's so weird to me.
Yeah.
Like, people like to root for the underdog. And so once you become the favorite, once you become the guy that wins all the time, nobody wants you to win anymore.
Yeah, but they're the underdog this weekend.
Not in people's eyes.
Right. The bad guys.
I agree with everything both of you have said. My girls are excited for the game as well. They, with the whole Taylor Swift situation. I agree. Don't hate on that. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the people that have been watching and listening to our podcast all year. It's been fun for us. I hope it's been fun for you. I hope that we've been able to give you some extra knowledge throughout your fantasy year. And I hope that you come and join us again next year.
Yeah, I can't wait. Year 5, guys. We're heading into year 5. Maybe we'll come back for one of our schedule preview over the summer and give you guys some little extra love. But until then, enjoy the Super Bowl and thanks for tuning in.